to our next speaker, and it is a great honor for me to introduce a most esteemed scientist, that is G. Madhavan Nair, Padma Vibhushan. Madhavan Nair is president of the International Academy of Astronautics. He was chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, secretary to the Department of Space, Government of India, and the chairman of the Space Commission. He also served as chairman of the board of governors of the Indian Institute of Technology, Patna, and was chairman of governing body of the Antiques Corporation in Bangalore. Mr. Nair graduated with the BSc in Engineering in 1966 from the College of Engineering, Trivandrum, of the University of Kerala, with specialization in electronics and communication engineering. After his graduation, he attended a training program at the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, BARC, training school in Mumbai. Mr. Nair is a leading technologist in the field of rocket systems and has made significant contributions to the development of multi-stage satellite launch vehicles, achieving self-reliance and independent access to space using indigenous technologies. As director of ISRO's largest R&D center, the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, he also saw India's geosynchronous satellite launch successfully come to fruition. Mr. Nair has won numerous awards and honors for his distinguished career and contribution to India's space program. Mr. Nair was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian honor, on January 26th of 2009. He has a fascinating topic and message to share, so without further delay, please welcome Madhavan Nair.
Sambhujya Vasudevananda Saraswati Maharaj, Swami Govindagiri, Dr. John Hagelin, Professor Nada, Dr. Saroj Bala, Sambhujya Maharaj, those who are seated in the audience, most respected Ashok Singhal-ji, Swami Brahmadev-ji, other distinguished guests and delegates, a very good morning to all of you. I really consider it an honor for me to be invited to this very unique session where we are talking about the re-establishing the ideal Vedic India. Well, when I got the invite from Swami Brahmadev, I was really surprised because my knowledge of Vedas is at a kindergarten level. So I can't talk authoritatively. But still, in the interim period, I try to look at what we have in the Vedic literature and then try to correlate with what we have done with the modern space technology in India. So that way, perhaps I think my story will be different, but still I try to, whatever I gathered from the text and others, I try to highlight before you. If there are some mistakes, you should pardon me. Well, of course, we know that right from the human civilization origin, the fundamental questions are open. How the universe originated, why we are here, and where we are going to, what is the origin of life, are we alone in the universe, are there any other creatures which is either equal to us or superior to us, somewhere in some part of the universe. These questions are basic, fundamental questions which is there in the minds of people for ages, and I don't think we have found answers to many of these even today. Of course, we can, in India, the Bharat civilization, we can be proud that the Vedic knowledge which existed nearly 7,000 years back here in this continent was the beginning of a knowledge society. In fact, the Vedic literature, it originated sometime about the 500 BC, and it was enriched from generation to generation. Of course, there were limitations in the scripts and the writing means. So it was only this knowledge was transmitted orally from generation to generation, but still that was preserved. If you look at the contents of those knowledge, it is really amazing that at that time frame, when practically there is no additional means of sensors were available to the humankind. It is only the eyes, ears, the fingers, and so on. The basic the capability of the human being alone was used, but still the knowledge acquired was complete, which is very unique, and even today that knowledge stands the proof of verification. Well, of course, if you go through the various the four Vedic scriptures, the fundamental Vedic scriptures, we see that there is a strong foundation in mathematics, Ayurveda, architecture, astronomy, of course astrology at the time, we can interpret as astronomy today, the algebra, metallurgy. Why I picked up these areas alone is that normally the scientific community will be asking for proof. So that proof we can see in all these areas. The excavation which we had in the Indus Valley clearly shows identified proofs, and also some of the texts which was written after about 600 BC, that also clearly brings out statements in Sanskrit which substantiate this point. But only the negative aspect of this is those were very condensed, like this slide show, a bullet form of expression. So there is no preamble, there is no explanation of how and why. It is only the conclusions which is reproduced. The conclusions come out of intense thinking and analysis, but it is not reflected in the text. So that is one handicap. The modern scientific world is not accepting many of those things for want of a proof. So can we look for some of those proofs, some of those ideas which are hidden, which is not known to the man even today? Well, of course, in the mathematics, it was astonishing. Without even computers, people are talking about quantities in terms of 1 trillion and decimals going to very micro level, 1 by trillion and so on. These are all expressed because we had the knowledge of the zero and how it can be manipulated to position and so on. Then, this for computation purposes, at the time they had to memorize only 16 sutras. Using those sutras, they could find solutions to almost everything. So this is something amazing, and perhaps the modern the mathematics or the algebra and all those things owes its origin to this. In fact, many of the computer solutions what you are making today, these kind of sutras are very valuable. Of course, we can see that the algebra had a very strong foundation in the civilization, and also the Pythagoras theorem, which is publicized about 2000 years later, but it originated here. And this theorem was applied. Of course, in that need was very specific. They want to make some yogic pies and so on. So for making that yogic pie, they use this computation, and even the calculation of the bricks, etc., was done using this, and very precisely. And the measurement of length, the measurement of angle, all those things were invented in those days. Of course, astrology, that was one of the oldest form of astronomy. Well, it is amazing to note that the precision with which the positions of the stellar constellation, the planets, were calculated those days, its movement were predicted, and using that, the eclipse and so on. So this, even today, if you use all the powerful computers, it matches within a few decimal places. So that's the kind of accuracy which you have acquired. And this, mind you, that only with the naked eye, some unique measurement system using poles and shadows, people have done this. So this again is very unique, but at the same time the concentration was mostly how these positions of the stars and the planets could influence the human beings or other objects on the earth. So that way it was a different branch of combining the human civilization with the positions of these. Of course, I don't know whether we found the answers fully, but still people believe that there is an influence of these planetary forces on the living beings, their behavioral pattern, their psychology and so on. But to establish that fact and to make it into science, we had to go a long way. But this was being practiced. But as a scientist, I will say that the computations which evolved those days were really fantastic. Then, of course, again, it was brought out in various sutras. The Sulabha Sutra is one of that. Then Vedanga Jyotisha is one of the texts which is evolved in the 1400 to 1200 BCE. And Surya Siddhanta, again talking about the planetary motions and so on. These are all recorded proofs of our findings. Of course, I don't want, later up to, this continued all the way up to something like 500 CE. And then, of course, we are really proud that Aryabhatta and Bhaskara, they have done extensive work on the planetary motions and all. You see, the exploration of the outer world was one of the challenging fields, and we were really amazed by the type of knowledge which these people have accumulated and the type of computations and methodology for prediction and so on. And if you ask me, even for the moon mission, what we have done, the Chandrayaan, Aryabhatta's the basic equations holds. But we have only translated into the computer programs and utilized the rocket power and so on. And even the gravitational fields which existed and so on, the Newton found this almost about 1500 years later. But at this time itself, this knowledge was existing in Bharat. So this is something which all of us can be proud of. Then, of course, the Brahmagupta, Madhavacharya, all these people contributed further to the knowledge of astronomy in India. Of course, Ayurveda, I don't have to expose to this audience, you must have heard earlier. This is one of the oldest form of healthcare system. It is a holistic approach to healthcare, using the herbal medicines and so on, how human well-being can be attained. This coupled with yoga was very, very unique, and it's a product contribution from the Vedic civilization. Again, it was condensed into various amines and so on, and a large number of herbal products came out of this. And for anything and everything, even for the dreaded disease like cancer, there are solutions available, and still research is continuing on this thing. Of course, the surgical practices which is practiced in India was very unique. There is recorded history that 600 BC itself, plastic surgery was conducted here with very special instruments which was developed. Then in the Ayurveda, of course, again, number of literary works are done. Yes, the proofs. When we dig into the Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, the number of artifacts which are found, and that's proof of what existed. I will give total credit to the text based on this proof. The metallurgy, basically starting from copper, tin, then bronze, then iron, all these, the origins can be seen and the products were available here. And it is from India, this knowledge was taken to Middle East and then from there to Europe. So in the metallurgy, there was a strong base. Then in the town planning and civilization, there is a strong proof was available, and in fact it was one of the finest living habitats were made in those days, providing sanitation, water supply, and separate place for living, cooking, and literary work or art and so on. So this is something which we can all be really proud of. So that way, if you look at it, what we had from 500 BCE up to 600 CE, this is the golden era of Indian knowledge and Vedic culture. India is really proud of it. But unfortunate part of it is there are not much of this was available in the written form. Of course, it is after 600 BC the written form, various texts came, and then later it was translated into various other languages and so on. But still, unless you have a thorough knowledge of Sanskrit, you cannot absorb the basics of Veda. So in fact, I am handicapped. I try to look at the various texts which are available in this. Everywhere the stress is on pricing the god, the worshipping the king, and so on. And it is in a different line, the interpretation. And probably the inner personality, the human being, the how and why of the human being, and the inner self, the try to find the truth in the inner self, that was given more stress than to the physical findings of the outside world. So probably there is a lot of scope for research in the Vedic literature to dig into the how and why of the Vedic principles which is exponented, and from there how we can build up to the future. Now I will change the topic entirely to the new field. From the Vedic era we have come a long way. Of course, those sannyasis who have really toiled doing the tapasya day in and day out to find out the positions, etc. Today we are equipped with the space technology, where we can go above the atmosphere, where the observations are very clear, it is not distorted and so on. So in that field, we have come a long way. In fact, if you take from 600 CE until independence in India, it was a dark era as far as the knowledge is concerned. Because of the foreign invasions and other things, I think the entire civilization was distorted, the talents were curbed, and we were not able to make significant contribution in many fields. But afterwards, we made a tremendous impact in many areas. You take the atomic program. We have, though the concept of Anu was there in the Vedic text, but from there, we have really exploded in our modern India. Our Baba Atomic Research Center and other establishments, they have really deciphered the secrets of atom, broken it released the energy, used for peaceful purposes, and also we know how to make a weapon. Similarly, starting from very tiny rocket, I will draw your attention to Tipu's rocket. That is the first Indian rocket which is made here in this continent in the year of 1783. And from there, we have come a long way. We have a PSLV and JSLV which can take an object not only around the Earth, but go all the way to Mars and given an opportunity even beyond the solar system. Such capability we have acquired. So, wherever we have set our goals and we have committed and worked hard, we have achieved. This is the story on that. Of course, the Chinese, they took the lead in the rocketry to start with. They were using in fireworks. Then probably, that is, the Chinese travelers only would have brought that Tipu's rocket here, but there is no sample or anything left here. At the same time, in the Western world, the Oberth in USA and Tucholsky in Russia, they were the pioneers in the beginning of last century, and they made rockets. From there, of course, as a war machinery, the rockets were made use of to deliver the weapon system all over in the Second World War, the Russia and the US were competing, and Germans, they overtook the V2 rocket. That became very powerful. Now, of course, China, Russia, Europe, and we have the missile capability. Well, of course, today in the world scenario, there are a large number of rockets which are there. In that, our PSLV is a workhorse launcher which can carry something like 3 tons of object into Earth orbit and maybe about 1 ton of a spacecraft to outside the planet Earth. Then the real space exploration started with the US and Russia competing with each other. The Sputnik and the Gemini capsule in which the manned mission was there. And Yuri Gagarin and Alan Shepard, they became the initial players in the space. Of course, there were the moon landing by America was a very unique event. The Apollo that was landed there. Then parallelly, the Russians landed robotic rovers there. Then we have the space station. That's a unique example where people can live outside the planet Earth, and the space shuttle was one of those powerful vehicles. Then the Soyuz, that was one of the Russian achievements. Well, all of us are really proud that one of the US rovers have landed on the Mars and then try to go around, take pictures, and try to see what is happening there. In fact, the capability of a human being is translated into this Mars explorer. And surprisingly, some of the pictures which has come out is very revealing. It is like when we go to near Himalaya, some other rivers get dried up and you have only stone pebbles and stream structure there. These pictures which has come from the Mars rover almost similar to that. So that means at some point in the past, maybe about 1 billion years back, there were rivers flowing. Whether it is water, whether it is methane, we don't know. But still, there are traces of it, and river beds are there. And also there is presence of water is confirmed in that region, and so on. But still, our dream of habitating Mars is far away. Simply because the Martian atmosphere is completely carbon dioxide, we have to create a living habitat there. So the challenges lies there. Of course, how the space tourism can be popularized is envisioned by one of the US entrepreneurs, the Virgin. They are trying to see that like an aircraft, somebody can get into that and then go to space and come back and so on. But the Indian era was driven by the dream of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, the pioneer in the space exploration. He has set the goal that we should not only master this high technology, but utilize for the benefit of the common man. We have truly lived up to his vision. Using the satellite, we provide the broadcast, communication, and more than that, the meteorological services. Trying to look at the planet Earth, trying to look at the cloud pattern, and then try to give a forecast for the various events. That's a very unique program India has succeeded in emergency communication and so on. Then to reach out to the far-flung villages, the tele-education program was implemented in India. Of course, by tele-education, an expert classroom. Suppose this lecture can be beamed to thousands of places simultaneously and people can benefit, and the multiplying effect is very much there. Especially when we have a shortage of expert teachers, we were trying to use this system. Then comes the telemedicine, where the patient data can be transmitted to an expert who is sitting in a metropolitan hospital, and he holds a teleconference with the patient, and that way the healthcare service is taken to the remotest part of India. Well, of course, we wanted to have our own navigation system. A constellation of satellites are being established. Now the fourth one is going to be launched within a month. With that, we will have equivalent of GPS for the Indian continent with our own system. This is our capability to look at planet Earth from space. This image is taken from 600 kilometers above the Earth, and you can see the clarity which is being seen there. And we can even identify a small car moving on the road using these images. This is another potential social application. The fishermen, they hunt for fish in the sea. By looking at the various aspects of the surface, like temperature, wind conditions, and so on, one can say where the fish should be available more, and they can be directed there, and the cost saving and more catch is available there. Chandrayaan, this is one of the unique missions we have achieved. We not only went to moon, we had international cooperation with the European as well as American scientific instruments on board. Ultimately, the unique thing is, first time in the history of humankind, we established there is water on the moon. So this has been the achievement of the Indian scientific community. Of course, some sloka in one of the Vedas says that there is water in the moon, but nobody believed. Not only that, American astronauts, they brought some samples. There was moisture content in that. But then somebody foo-fooed saying that, no, it is only sweat from the astronaut's hands. But still we had the opportunity to confirm this. Well, this is a close picture of the moon. We went as close to about 100 kilometers and took a stereo picture, and this is how the surface looks like. Our poets used to compare beautiful women to moon. But after looking at the picture, I don't know how much you say that. Well, I just don't want to get into details, but we have a plan to have our own rocket systems which can use for various purposes. The last one under development is for carrying a human being to orbit. Some 3 persons in a module can go to space and then come back and so on. India has really, I'm just trying to give only one example of the Indian achievement. There are very many achievements in agricultural field, in atomic field, and so on. But in space, if you look at it, we are in par with most of the developed nations as far as building satellites and launching building the rockets and launching satellites and so on. But our dream for the future, we want to have a system almost like an aircraft. You should take off from an airfield. Any one of us should be able to get into it, go to space, either for vacation or work, and then come back. There's a long way to go. It's a dream which we have projected, which we hope within the next 10 years we will be at it. So that's the type of goal which you have set for the future. So you can see the contrast. Vedic time, we didn't have any instruments whatsoever, any computers, any methods of sophistication. But still, there was the imagination. In fact, there is one place where they talk about how to make even an aircraft, and there are references about the multiple arrows. You send one arrow, it splits into many, which is equivalent to multiple re-entry vehicles. Today, what do we talk about for the weapon system? So, imagination and intuition, all those were rich content of the Vedic literature. Whether it is in our Vedic scripts or in the Puranas or in Upanishads, there is a lot of information and knowledge contained in it. How to absorb this knowledge and further build onto it. If we say that 18,000 slokas could contain the knowledge which was existing about 1,000 years before Christ, today we require 18 billion slokas to take on the knowledge. So that's the kind of expansion in knowledge which has taken place. But at the same time, our tools also has multiplied. You have the cloud computing, you have the internet, you have the communication system, all those things. So instantaneously you can access information. But further, how to build up? But if you want to achieve all those things, the basic thing is the mind, human mind. It has to be controlled. It has to be conditioned to absorb knowledge and utilize the knowledge for the benefit of the humankind. So that's the kind of message I learned from the Vedas. Thank you.